Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton live, Status Coup. Sorry I'm late. I've been trying to kill a fly. I've been trying to kill a fly as Colin has been watching me. I might be, while I'm live, using the vacuum cleaner to try and get this fly because my home, unfortunately, seems to have a fly problem. They're everywhere and they have invaded my studio. So if you see flies flying around, that's just part of the ambiance here at Status Coup. So my apologies. But we are later going live a little bit later today. Um, we have our members call coming up in an hour and a half. So I'm excited about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But if you are not yet a Status Coup member, you still got a little less than an hour and a half to sign up for 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. Sign up as a Status Coup member for 16 cents a day. And you can join us on the members call. It's a video call. We used to do it through Zoom. We're doing a different program now, but it's pretty easy to navigate. And if you don't want to be on camera, you could just listen and turn your video off. So I take your questions, comments, concerns. I certainly have plenty of behind the scenes information to share with our members tonight, including stuff about my book, planning for the book, and other things. By the way, today is June 6th, 2 months. 2 months, if you have the book cover, Colin, 2 months until the release of We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint water crisis cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans. We'll have to spruce that up and put it on a Status Coup backdrop. But I'm super excited. My book is available to be pre-ordered now. The more people that pre-order the book, the higher it goes on all the rankings on Barnes & Noble's website, yes, Amazon's website, and all the bookstore websites. So if you want the book, definitely pre-order it if you can. The link to pre-order it is in the description. I've put everything I have, blood, sweat, and tears, into this book. I'm biased because I wrote it and it's based on my reporting, but I do believe that this book will expose the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. It has been said to me by people who have read it that this makes Watergate look like child's play, what I've exposed. David, good point. I had to run yesterday and I didn't read the super chats. So I don't know if you saved them, Colin. If you didn't, and you wrote a super chat yesterday and I didn't respond, just write your question again and put at the front. It was a super chat from yesterday and I'll read them. I definitely will read them. So, yeah, the book's very exciting. I'll have more details about the book and some behind the scene things going on the members call tonight. So definitely become a member. We like to give you something for your membership. So that's why I do the monthly call with the members. I was supposed to do it last week, but I had a little family emergency come up. And we were supposed to do it the week before that, but Colin's power went out because he lives in Texas and there's tornadoes. So apologies. But with that said, I wanted to just do kind of a casual live stream today. I am working on a major East Palestine story, and I'll tell members tonight what that is. I just started working on it. I've put out requests for comment about an hour ago to the EPA, among other officials. So hopefully, if all goes right, we'll have that story ready to publish probably Monday. But it's a big deal, what I've just discovered, and we have receipts. We do not forget about the sacrifice zones in America. So as the media focuses on Trump's trials and the 2024 election, we're staying on the East Palestine disaster. We're staying on the ongoing Flint water crisis and trying to cover as much other things as possible. I do have calls out to try and talk to folks in Atlanta. If you don't know, Atlanta has just got their water back today after 5 or 6 days without water because pipes were bursting in Atlanta. And the Democratic mayor who has been behind this totally unnecessary militarized police compound, Cop City, he thought it would be a good idea while his city of hundreds of thousands of people were without water to go to an out-of-state fundraiser in Memphis for his reelection. So his city was without water, but he bolted to Memphis for a fundraiser. Yes. So hopefully I'll have an interview with someone from Atlanta on that as well. Before I start taking your calls, I did have to run yesterday. I kind of had a hard out where I had to go quickly to watch my daughter. So I didn't read yesterday's super chats. So let me read them. Teresa, $50 yesterday. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone must check out Macro and Cheese episodes, old and the new. But seriously, the newer episode graphics are rad. That's Steve Grumbine's show. So definitely check out Macro and Cheese. I think it airs. It's a podcast. So I think it gets released on Saturdays, if I'm correct. Tony D, member for 2 years, gifted a Status Coup membership. Thank you so much, Tony, for gifting a new membership. Tony D also left $1.99. Jordan, your Amazon reporting was legendary. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Bad Mama Jama, $1.99. Is there any sort of book club coming up, Steve? We'll have to redirect that to Steve when he comes back next week. Glenn, $9.99. America's puppet masters love a weak POTUS, President of the United States, for the same reason that scammers regularly target the elderly. They are easy to manipulate. Those pesky critical thoughts just not there anymore. Vegan Linux, $5. I tell you folks who are not involved in politics that Project 2025 will ban pornography. That usually gets their attention. Republican ideology, barbaric. I don't know if Project 2025, which is Trump's thing, will ban pornography, because a lot of these like white evangelicals who claim to be against pornography and claim to be about family values are secretly jacking off to porn, just to keep it real. David Hunter, NYC, $5. What's your take on Mehdi Hassan? His last day on MSNBC, he said, vote for Joe Biden. Will Mehdi back Biden closer to the presidential election? Full disclosure, I've reached out to Mehdi Hassan to see if his new outlet would be interested in some type of content partnership, because I do like his new outlet. It's called Zeteo, I believe. He has not responded. So Mehdi, if you happen to be watching, I did reach out to you. As far as I can tell, you don't have any on-the-ground reporting. So if you want to add that component, we would love to be a content partner with you. I don't know how to answer this. How could I know what is in Mehdi Hassan's brain? I don't know if Mehdi Hassan will back Biden closer to the election. I have no idea. I've never spoken with him. So couldn't answer you on what's in his mind, whether he'll back Biden or not. Philip Blair this was yesterday, became a new Status Coup member and gave us $2. Thank you. And I hope to see you on the members call in a little over an hour from now. The Experts is a punk rock band, ? He said. Juanita became a new Status Coup member. Welcome. And Kimmy became Kimmy has been a member for 2 months and also became a member on YouTube. So she's double dipping. You can be a member on our website and YouTube. Before I get to the calls, and apologies if you're seeing in the frame flies swatting around. I have a bit of a fly problem and didn't get a chance to. I've been trying to get these fucking flies with the vacuum, but they are very, very, very quick and they run away when you try and vacuum them. Colin, if you can come on for a second. I know you don't have your, when are you going to get your camera so we could see your face?
Hopefully soon. I just a little cramped right now, but I'm hoping in the next week or two.
So basically you're lying and you're actually just naked with your cats and prefer not to be on camera.
In the words of all those people who from Hillary Clinton's emails, I plead the fifth.
That was a good one. Can you tell people in exactly an hour? Well, actually, it'll be less than an hour. You'll be sending out the video link for our members call.
Yes. So if you're a member on our website, StatusCoup.com, you'll receive an email on the email associated with your membership with just a direct link to it. And if you're on a YouTube member, just check the community tab and it'll be posted there as well. And Patreon, just check that Patreon feed and it'll be posted there all at the same time, about probably 30 minutes before it starts. And yeah, just click the meeting link and that's all you got to do.
And if you have any issues getting on, email us at info@statuscoup.com, info@statuscoup.com, and Colin will probably respond to you because I don't know what I'm doing. All right. I want to take your calls. Don't be shy. We could talk about anything. anything. 2024 election, Israel, Palestine, world peace, whatever you want. Colin's putting up the number. Let me set it up here. Host the show. Save and start. Ready? Connect. And you got what you need, Colin?
Yeah, that looks correct.
All right. And while I wait for callers, again, we're doing our members call in an hour. Listen, bottom line, I know there's a ton of emails you get asking for your money, either from political candidates or media outlets. As far as I know, you can correct me, we are the only outlet consistently on the ground. John Farina has covered over 50, let me repeat, over 50 ceasefire/student protests in New York City and DC. This morning, we posted another video. He wasn't live for this. He recorded from a No Pride in Genocide rally that John covered. Today, he's covered 2 protests, smaller protests, so we didn't go live. He's actually at one right now. I guess they're protesting outside of the New York City Police Gala. So that should be interesting. In addition to that, we are the only ones that keep covering Flint. I've been there twice in the last 2 months. I've been there 21 times since 2016, and we just released recently a full-length documentary on the Flint water crisis and cover-up. This year is 10 years of the ongoing Flint water crisis and cover-up. We just went back to East Palestine. I'm working on a story about East Palestine as well. We're going to be going to the DNC. And I just had a call today about doing something bigger for the DNC, some type of marathon type show where John would be on the ground in Chicago for the DNC and I'd be here with special guests. So we need you. If we're going to grow, we need more people to sign up as paying members because the costs for on the ground reporting are a lot. And frankly, it's a lot more. We have a lot more costs than other folks who are sitting in a studio. No offense to them. We love a lot of the commentators in the left space, but their overhead is a lot less than us. So if you can sign up, we try to give you a little something for your membership, including the members calls once a month. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. First caller, it just says Atlanta. I don't know your name, but you're up.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually not in Atlanta. I'm calling you from Central America, Costa Rica.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Hey, yeah, just to give you a quick background, I work here as a political analyst. I work issues of human rights, drug policy reform, and migrant issues in Central America. Mainly, the Darien Gap, all those areas. I've been there up to the United States southern border. But I saw that you wanted to talk about the 24 election in the United States, the Israel Gaza, and
we could
and
talk
other
about
stuff.
we could talk about whatever you want.
All right. The one thing that's interesting to us in Latin America is that our relation to the United States in the last 200 years has had ups and downs. Mainly, the downs signify United States invading us or intervening into our political issues and or imposing policies such as the war on drugs for the past 60 years. So to us, the election in the United States does not change anything. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican. To us, it just signifies having to survive more. Maybe this is just that around. But honestly, to us, Donald Trump is the Hugo Chavez or the Daniel Ortega or the Pinochet of the United States. The populace who just wants power for power,
Right.
And I don't know. I think that uh, United States. You know what's interesting? I've talked this with several friends. What I'm seeing in the United States, I already lived in Venezuela with the change of what was the bipartisan model, the end of Caldera, and the beginning of Hugo Chavez. I lived through that, and I've lived it also in Costa Rica when the bipartisan system changed about 14 years ago.
Hmm.
And now I'm living it again with Mexico, seeing how the bipartisan model broke with the election of AMLO and now with the election of Claudia Sheinbaum. And yet, the United States still is stuck in that model of bipartisan system.
Yeah.
So, in this sense, um, to us in Latin America, the reality of the United States is that it doesn't matter who is elected, because at the end, the status quo is to continue treating us as a backyard of the United States.
Right. I don't even think the backyard of the United States. I think kind of the toilet bowl under the United States, if you, in my view.
Yeah, pretty much. But now we're having a lot of presence of China and not so much Russia, but yeah, Russia has been getting there. And even though some of our political are inclining themselves to make an open business and trade with China, many of us don't. We see China in the same way we see United States,
Hmm.
an imperialist country that has no idea of our struggles and the things we've done in the last 200 years to be free, to establish democracies, etc.
Hmm.
And in the same way, Russia, we don't see it as a um, as a beacon of absolutely nothing. In fact, many of us are tremendously opposed to the dictatorship of Vladimir Putin. You
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And also something that I find frustrating, even though this isn't all Latin America, obviously, a lot of the migrants at the border are from Central America, but the media coverage here, it never mentions they're not all coming to America for the quote unquote American dream, which is no longer a dream. A lot of them from Central and Latin America are rushing to America because we have fucked up their countries. And we have, through the war on drugs, sanctions, caused a lot of issues and violence. And therefore, people flee their countries for the United States. This does not get talked about in the media coverage of the quote unquote crisis at the border, which I don't really think is a crisis, in my opinion, does not focus on America's role on why so many are coming
So
here.
yeah, no, and one thing that is interesting, specifically on the migration of the Western Hemisphere, I don't want to delve into the mobilization of Africans and Chinese that are two major types of population that are moving also into that. I was in the Darien Gap, and what was it? 7 years ago.
Mhm.
7 years ago, we had about 2,600 Africans coming from here. Majority of them between the west area of Africa, Central Africa, and a little bit of the east. And when they started moving through us and asking us what are our countries like, we had to re-educate them and tell them, look, you're in America right now. Even if you're in Panama, you're still in America.
Right.
Remember one thing: when you get up to the north, don't assimilate to the gringo way. Always, always keep yourself as center as possible because the gringo way is imperialist way, and unfortunately, they they don't they don't they no longer see America as what it has always been. This continent that goes from Argentina to Alaska and the Caribbean. We're all Americans here. Um, so, in that perspective, my experience in working with migration is that the three major things that happen: the displacement of people because of the violence, mainly done by the war on drugs, the economical situations and internal economic situations in Latin American countries, alongside with the violence of that, And the third main focus is there is always has been a sense that this continent belongs to all of us. So our migration is just a normal, it constitutes a normal sense of being. But people don't realize that out of all the population of Latin America, which is about 640 million, more than doubles that of the United States, divided in 33 nations, only about 12% of that population has been mobilizing on migration towards the United States.
Mm.
And it constitutes of four major countries, which are Mexico, the Triangle of the North, which is Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, and the more integration of Venezuelans into that. But the majority of Venezuelans are not migrating to the United States. They are migrating to Latin American countries near them, either Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Panama. So the majority of Venezuelans are mobilizing nearby. And another ones are mobilizing to Europe, and then, yes, on third place to United States. Uh, Sorry if I go on. I just wanted to set that notion.
Yeah, no,
The
I think it's important.
Yeah, and the major thing here is that we can then establish that that migration, especially the regular migration, the AKA badly called illegal migration towards the United States, is also because the United States has told us about the so-called American dream, and people buy it,
Right.
but they don't realize what the hell they're buying.
Yeah.
I'm a migrant myself. I lived in the United States in three different locations in my life. The reason I came back to my area of America is because A, the first time it was because my parents had a divorce, so we had to get out. The second time and the third time is because mainly I was just working on projects within the United States, of different natures, of political analysis and political studies, etc. And then I came back home, and here I've worked. For example, in my country, Costa Rica, I was able to get medicinal cannabis legal. It took me 13 years, from the moment I came out publicly demanding the legalization of cannabis or weed or marijuana, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I did it through the congressional means. I was able to present a project and fight through that project in three different congresses. And just 4 years ago, we were able to get it. No, it was 3 years ago. We were able to legalize it. And now I'm working on drug policy reform in my country, but also on the whole region to end the war on drugs. I've also worked in us assisting the migrants and the caravans, etc., as best possible. And I've had to take out dead bodies from Rio Grande. I had to take out a child of 10 years who had died drowned in the Rio Grande. We had to take out his body. So at the end of the day, with all this, I think that the major complaint is that we are sick and tired of the gringo way. We're fed up with this idea of the Western cultures that only apply for European cultures or the United States. But we are also Western cultures. We're the cultures of the Western Hemisphere. They ignore us completely. And it comes to a point where you just say, we have to close our borders. We have to close ourselves off from the United States. If Trump comes again to president, you may start seeing that we're going to just say, you know what? We've seen we're going to go into our area.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the United States is going to see it difficult.
Yeah. Listen, I got to go to the next caller because I have a few more, but I appreciate you calling.
I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care. And reminder, folks, before I get to the next caller, we are now less than an hour from our monthly members call. So you still got time. Sign up as a Status Coup member. And if you sign up as a member within the next half hour or so, we will get your email, and we will send you the link to join the call. It's a video call. So we do it kind of through a program similar to Zoom. But if you don't want to be on camera, you can mute your mic, you can mute your camera and just listen if you want. And I take questions, comments, all that stuff, and probably tell you way too much information behind the scenes stuff. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. And if you sign up now, I'll plug you and give you a shout out as you sign up. Next caller, doesn't say your name, but topic is Adriel Gaza. You're up.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey there.
I have like 3 questions, and they're like in 2 parts. One of them is political.
You got 3 questions. You got 3 questions, each in 2 parts.
Yes.
Oh my Lord! I better go get my notebook. Okay.
It's just because I keep watching news reports, and I just never see, or like how you guys have the podcast, I never see anyone respond. So I'm just curious. The first one is, they're trying to pass a bill that they're saying that if you condemn Zionism, then you're anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
But I remember Biden being on TV saying you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. So why isn't anyone saying that?
Because they don't want to get into anything in the territory of nuance. That's why. Remember, I think it was in Georgia that the state of Georgia, Abby Martin had to sue because the state of Georgia, like a college, wouldn't let her on unless she signed a pledge against BDS. So there's kind of been a road leading to this insane type of bill. But yes, Zionism is not limited to Judaism. There's Christian Zionism, among other types of Zionism. And I think it is super dangerous for government officials to be trying to pass legislation with a very broad.
Evangelistics are actually a bigger portion of the Zionism.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm pretty sure most of those rich white people probably don't even know that there's more forms of Zionism than Judaism. But yeah, I think the bill that they're trying to propose is very dangerous. And you're right. I mean, it hasn't been pointed out, as far as I can tell, definitely not mainstream media, but I don't even think independent media has pointed that out. So that's a great point, that Zionism is not exclusive to Judaism.
Okay, now question 2. When they say how Hamas is using people as shields because they're behind those walls, why isn't anyone saying back to them, but you created the walls, and why doesn't Palestine, any part of Palestine, have a military or have a military base? Why is that never talked about?
That's a good question. Well, one, yes, they created the wall, but they're also, they have a lot of their tunnels, and a lot of their structure is under or within, busy civilian zones, markets, hospitals, schools, temples. But I never bought that whole they're hiding or using people as human shields. Well, you make a choice as a military. This is just part of warfare. You make a choice what is and is not acceptable collateral damage. I mean, America has had to make that choice, and in my view, often made the wrong one, knowing that, there was a quote unquote target, but that target was at a wedding with, 100 family members. And there's been cases where they chose not to, because it would be too high of a, too much of a civilian casualty count. So whether Hamas is or is not, quote unquote, hiding within the civilian population, they are. But that's why, Israel has an advanced military. They could have gone in to Gaza with their military and done surgical strikes, efforts on the ground, targeting Hamas, quote, operatives. They didn't want to do that because they didn't want to risk, mass casualties among their soldiers. So basically, they made the determination, we're willing to risk mass casualties among Palestinian civilians because we don't really care. They're not human to us, and we're not going to risk our soldiers by sending them in through the ground. That's basically what it is. I mean, Gaza is one of the most densely populated, I think it's number 2 or number 3 densely populated areas on planet Earth. So by default, whether they're intentionally submerged, whether Hamas is intentionally or not putting themselves in busy civilian areas, by default, if they're in Gaza, they are going to be around busy
I
civilian
feel like
areas.
Israel created that human shield, though, because they knew when they built the wall around that they had no option but to be within the population.
Yeah, I mean they
So
can't.
in a way,
They
it's
can't go into.
Israel
They can't go into Egypt.
Shield.
They can't leave for Egypt. They can't leave for Israel. Their only option is go south, where they're continually bombed anyway as they're fleeing south, or go into the sea. There really is nowhere for them to go. So that's a great point.
Yes. And do you know why there's no military in either part of Palestine?
Well, technically, they're not a government. They're not an official, country. They used to be, but they're not an official country. So, and frankly, it is true that Hamas has ciphered a lot of the money that comes from international aid organizations and taken it for themselves for weapons, for missiles, that kind of thing. But yeah, they don't have a military because they don't have an official country that you would have a military. Hamas is their military. Let's put it that way.
All right, and then the third one is they keep saying that it's up to Hamas to sign the ceasefire. They care, blah blah blah. They're citizens.
Yeah,
but
that's bullshit.
Why would have Hamas went in and taken the hostages in return to get their people back if they didn't care about their people? And without any people, what's the point of their government? It doesn't exist.
Well, first of all, Hamas, it's bullshit that it's up to Hamas now. Hamas has basically said, we are not going to agree unless Israel ends the war. Meaning, we're not going to agree to a ceasefire for a temporary pause. We will agree to a ceasefire if they permanently end the war.
Yeah, but no reporter ever comes back and says something like that. Like, why would they kill their own people, yet they started this trying to get some of their people back?
Well, it depends. People have different mindset. A lot of people, even people that, might be more sympathetic to Hamas, do believe that they want the civilian casualty number to go up because it makes Israel more of a pariah state and gives Palestinians more sympathy and brings more of the world on the Palestinian side. In truth, I mean, more of the world has joined the Palestinian side. Even presidents like in France have spoken out against Israel, and France is no, progressive country in terms of the leadership. It's just as, imperial and, deep state as the U.S. So I think Hamas, do I think they don't care about their people? I think they care about their people, but I think they're willing to, in their mind, martyr as many people as possible because they think for the long term, the more people that Israel kill, the more Israel is basically made into a pariah country and isolated from the rest of the world. That's what I believe. But Hamas has basically said, we will accept a ceasefire if Israel stops the war. And I think that's reasonable. And Israel does not want to do that because, in my view, Israel, I mean, just like Trump has motivation to stay out of prison, Israel's prime minister, he's got legal problems. And if he ends the war, then they're probably going to call for a new election in Israel, and he's going to get booted from office and probably have a lot of criminal liability for other stuff. He was indicted on bribery and other stuff. So it's not true that Hamas has not agreed to a ceasefire. They have said repeatedly they would agree to a ceasefire if Israel ends the war. So.
Yeah, none of the news reporters actually ever come back because I watch that thing every day where the speaker comes out and he answers questions. Mm-hmm. And nobody ever comes back and says something to him.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. Most of the mainstream corporate media in America are crap. Most of them either are stupid, lazy, or know that they can't ask certain questions or report certain things. I know because I've talked to, when I'm on the ground, I've talked to corporate reporters that work for local and national news, and the things they'll say off the air are quite different than what they'll say on the air. But yeah, I mean, they should have asked, what do you mean, Hamas? It's up to Hamas. They've already said they would agree to a ceasefire if Israel ends their bombing. So I could only allow you. I could only allow you 3 because I got other people on wait. But I appreciate you calling.
No, that was it.
All right.
Thank you very much for answering questions.
No problem.
Bye.
And we are about 45 minutes away from the members call. So remember, you could still sign up as a Status Coup member and get on to our members call. Colin will be sending out the email shortly to our Status Coup members for the call. Next up, Joshua Jenkins. Is that who you are?
Yeah, that's me, Jordan. I'm here.
Hey there.
Hi, Jordan. I'd like to talk to you about how the media is covering Israel, because it makes me furious that they think that the protesters are equivalent to Nazis that were saluting with a straight arm and wearing jackboots. Meanwhile, people who actually salute with a straight arm and wear jackboots are free to run around the country, and they show they actually hate Jews and actually would advocate for their genocide.
Well, I don't know many Nazis that would have a Seder at a protest with Jews, because that's what they were doing at Columbia. The quote unquote anti-Semitic protesters were sitting for a Seder. I think this was in April, with fellow protesters protesting on Columbia for a ceasefire. So it's clearly not anti-Semitic. I think the majority of protesters at some of the colleges, including Columbia, were Jewish. So if you want to call Jews anti-Semitic, I don't know how you're going to square that one. But of course, it's laughable. Yes. And the other thing is, as John Farina, our cameraman who's covered over 50 of these, has pointed out, most of the pundits or quote unquote reporters saying this nonsense that they're all anti-Semitic, this and that, haven't even been to the protests. Or if they did come to the protests, like come for 5 minutes and leave. Status Coup and, freelance video journalists, cameramen and women, they're the only ones consistently out covering these protests. NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, MSNBC, they kind of parachute in and out, but they're not there like consistently speaking with protesters, covering it. So they're just basically, that's what corporate media does. It's all about building a narrative. It's the same thing they did with the anti-Iraq protesters. And in the beginning of the Iraq war, they're un-American. They were trying to push that a lot of these people are un-American or communists. When no, they were just against. They just had the ability and the vision to see that this was a bullshit war before most other people who were still caught up in wanting to react to 9/11 and just do something. I agree with you. It is infuriating, and I'm not like religious, but I am Jewish, and I think this trying to toss out that everyone's anti-Semitic and everything is anti-Semitism, it then takes away from like actual anti-Semitism, for which there really is anti-Semitism in the world and in America. There's been like defacing of temples in America.
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
But let me say this. These voters and media outlets are coddling Biden. They act like the MAGA movement is a big problem, which it is, but little do they know, they're radicalized into their own MAGA movement. And if he loses in November, I think most of them are just going to go away, but I think they'll just be running through the streets yelling about how younger generations have failed them, because I think a lot of people would benefit from the Biden presidency, but if he loses and a bunch of Democrats go down, they would be really bad if they were out of like a political job, or they don't feel any comfort that that they can live under the illusion that the government is working.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that bottom line, you also have to remember a lot of these media outlets, frankly, are owned by massive multi-billion-dollar corporations. And a lot of these massive multi-billion-dollar corporations have a lot of Jewish people that are in leadership. I don't think that's anti-Semitic to say. Same thing that I say. A lot of the biggest donors to the Democratic and Republican Party happen to be Jewish people. I mean, the Republican Party for years, the first thing anyone did when they wanted to run for president was go kiss the ring of Sheldon Adelson. He's dead now, but he was that major wealthy casino billionaire and a major Zionist. The reason Trump moved the embassy, the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem was because Sheldon Adelson gave him $30 million. Chaim Saban, who is one of the biggest donators to the Democratic Party, is worth $3 billion. Biden has done several fundraisers at his home this year. He is a major Zionist. Where after Biden, quote unquote, paused weapons to Israel for all of 5 minutes, Chaim Saban, it was reported, sent a scorching email to Biden's top advisors, furious, and Biden reversed course. So a lot of the donors, corporate executives, it's not, and a lot of them aren't Jewish and are just super duper pro-Israel because, Israel is kind of important to U.S. capitalism. Israel, this doesn't get noted in coverage. Israel is kind of the Silicon Valley of the Middle East. Israel, other than Silicon Valley in America, Israel is one of the biggest tech hubs in the world, which is very important to the U.S. because the U.S. and Israeli companies have relationships, tech companies. So there's a lot of financial stuff behind the scenes for why corporate media just does the bidding of Israel. Also, there's AIPAC, which we know has bought off most of the politicians. And also a lot of people behind AIPAC are involved with media companies. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what's going on. I got it. Go ahead.
No, I see that you're busy. What should I sign off?
No, you can say one more thing.
The worst thing is that this is just like the war on drugs debate and the gangster rap debate. It's just like people at high positions of power are just gonna yell at people who make content, telling people what they think about the effects of the war on drugs and their various censorship movements. It just sounds like we're never going to end this debate, and the media is just going to keep fueling it and inviting on politicians that support their beliefs.
The bottom line is when you have major media run by multi-billion-dollar corporations who have contracts, who lobby the U.S. government for all sorts of things, who have relationships with Israel, who have business relationships with Israel, not to mention identity connections with Israel. Whether, I know the owner of one of the biggest executives at Comcast is Jewish, was a major fundraiser for Biden. You got to understand, and not all Jewish people, but a lot of Jewish people have been trained and kind of propagandized that Israel could do no wrong, and an attack on Israel is an attack on Judaism itself. That's propaganda. It's brainwashing, but a lot of Jewish people believe that in America. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think this is, for better or worse, how it's going to be. I got to take my next caller. Thanks for calling.
All right. Bye, Jordan.
No problem. Claire, you're up.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hey. Thanks for taking my call. If I could, before I discuss what I called in about, you mentioned the Sheldon Adelson factor. My fellow Texans, in case they're not aware, Miriam Adelson, his widow, bought a majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks basketball team.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Some Mark Cuban.
They are in the NBA Finals now. So
Oh wow! See, I don't even pay attention, but yeah, and she gave a speech that it can be looked up on local Dallas area news coverage, talking about how her exact words were, her Israel must keep fighting to defend itself, and aren't we lucky to live in a place that's peaceful, meaning the U.S., which that's considering that you have to worry about dodging bullets every time you grab your car or go to the grocery store or go to work. But you know, I digress from that. But yeah, that's just something. She's certainly carrying on Sheldon's wishes now that he's gone,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the main thing I wanted to discuss, and I joined late, so forgive me if y'all have already spoken about this, but as a nurse in my specialty being now neonatal care, but in past I've worked in adult maternal care, adult ICU. I just can't help but be sickened and horrified by what I see happening in Gaza and some of the stories coming out about the maternal child morbidity, mortality happening.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I think, I don't know if you remember, but they showed a bunch of babies that had, like, because the power was out,
Yes.
bunch of babies sadly died because the machines they were hooked up to had no power.
Right. Excuse me. Absolutely. And part of what makes me angry is, unfortunately, I think a lot of Americans have become desensitized to the propaganda that we get, because unfortunately the exact same lie that was being spread before the first Iraq war, Saddam soldiers are yanking babies on the floor to die.
Your connection's kind of going in and out, unfortunately. You there? Think we're losing Claire. Okay. Okay. I hear you now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
You were talking about.
It just makes me.
Go ahead.
I don't know how much you heard, but yeah, I mean, the very issues that they lied about saying was a justification to invade Iraq the first time, meaning babies dying due to not being able to be in an incubator, very basic care, is going on now. And people are probably so desensitized that they don't believe it or don't take it seriously when they hear this.
Right. Yeah, we're awash in propaganda. And I think between the corporate media, between just the last like decade, between the Tea Party and then Trump and, the just onslaught of, I guess, I hate to use this term, but just bullshit fake news. I mean, the Steve Bannons of the world, the Alex Jones, all the right wing bullshit online and podcasts, and then the liberal bullshit online and podcasts, and some of it's just stupid people putting out stupid shit, and then some putting out stuff that's propaganda and wrong, and some of it's smart people knowingly putting out lies and propaganda. It's very hard as a consumer to know where to just get like the truth. I don't mean like just the facts, because I don't believe in like just report the facts. Like, I give my opinion, but my facts are correct. That's the most important thing. Are the facts correct? You could have an opinion as a reporter or journalist, but are you providing the facts? But the Israel-Palestine coverage, like so much else, is just suffocated with propaganda and bias, because in America, people have been brainwashed to be to be critical, not of Jewish people, but of the Israeli government. And they have been brainwashed almost like you'll be punished or canceled if you are critical of the Israeli government or Israel itself. And that's kind of, I don't know how you could say you have a democracy if there's certain countries that are on the do not criticize list, or do not protest list. I mean, that's that's not a democracy. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also where
And
I
I'll
find
tell you,
it so,
something that really bothers me too. When I hear these people, like sociopaths, say like, "Oh, compared to other wars, the death count in Gaza is similar to other wars." Well, first off, the term war, in my view, the term war implies two armies battling on the battlefield. Sure, the battlefield
yes,
occasionally crosses with civilian areas, and sadly, civilians do get killed. But this is not a war.
right.
This is not a war because innocent Palestinian civilians are not. They didn't launch the attack on October 7th. They don't have weapons. They're not. They don't have a battlefield. They're just living their life. They can't defend themselves. So this is
Right. They're not getting billions of dollars from
right.
the U.S. and weapons.
Right. This
Shipped.
is a massacre, is what it is. It's a genocide. And so it really bothers me when I hear certain pro-Israel or kind of, not even just pro-Israel people, but just people say, well, compared to other wars, the civilian to combatant ratio of death is, pretty similar. It's like, yeah, then that doesn't make it okay in other wars or this one. So.
Right. Absolutely.
So.
But thank you for what Status Coup does, the journalism in the field, especially what John and you as well and your other reporters do.
And by the
I know
way,
y'all rely on him.
he's not going to hear me now, but I've given him credit a lot in private conversations. John, he might not be on camera as much as me. He's behind the camera, but he's doing amazing work. I mean, I have an 18-month-old child, so unfortunately my life has changed. I can't go out and cover protests 3-4 times a week anymore. I want to be a father and be home for my kid. So the fact that I and Status Coup can rely on John to go live from all of these events, and he takes risks. He's risked arrest many times. He's risked his own safety. At January 6th, he was just stampeded by Trump supporters. He almost broke his ribs. And he covers these protests in the morning, late at night. We send him home in an Uber a lot of times because sometimes he doesn't end. He's live for 3 to 4 hours, and then when the battery dies, he then switches to record. So he's doing amazing work, and he deserves. I wish I could pay him more, but we gotta grow. So, and he's very passionate about it. He doesn't just cover these things because he likes to take pictures or video. He's passionate about the people and the injustice, and he wants people to see the police brutality that's being done, and he wants also for people to see the more beautiful moments, speeches and people coming together. So he deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, got to go to the next person. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Chris. I don't know if your name's Christian, but that's what it says here. Hello.
Yes, hey Christian. Hey, Jordan.
Hey.
Just want to say thank you for everything you do and everything Status Coup does.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And by the way, one second. We are now a half hour away, less than a half hour from our members call. So this is the last call, folks. If you want to join the members call, you got to sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as a shitty burnt cup of coffee from Starbucks. Although I do love my union people at Starbucks. Starbucks is like $5-6 for like coffee. $5 a month is all I ask. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member. That's 16 cents a day. And you could jump on the video call coming up at 7:30. All right. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No worries. So speaking of the member call and speaking of unions, during a member call a few years back, I mentioned Status Coup kind of unionizing with other independent media to combine forces to compete against the corporate media to shed more light on what's really important and not just, the agenda that, BlackRock is pushing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, based on where everybody's at, everyone, all the independent media is still divided. that no kind of nobody's joined forces, at all. Everyone's still divided. Everyone's still fighting on their own fronts. Obviously outnumbered, the financially also.
Mhm.
Is that a possibility that you would ever entertain?
Entertain, you know how many times I pitched it behind the scenes to people? Yes, I would entertain it. Believe it or not, I never wanted to run my own media company. I probably would have left the Young Turks. They fired me, which is old news. I probably would have left anyway because I was kind of getting sick of the direction they were going in. But it was never my desire to have my. Let me restate. I did want to have my own thing where I would answer to the viewers and would not have a boss, but I didn't want to run a business, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of shit and tedious stuff. So I am all for joining a broader coalition of independent media outlets as one giant network where each show or host would have their own time slot. So you could watch Status Coup at, whatever, 5 o'clock. You could watch breaking points at this time,
Yeah.
It
And I
starts.
think Status Coup, not to cut you off, I think Status Coup has kind of an expertise in the field,
Yeah.
and as you mentioned earlier, a lot of the other ones, more so, behind the camera, behind the desk.
Yeah, and
So I think you guys would
pitched
fit
it.
nicely.
I pitched it that way
Yeah.
where, other shows can use us for on the ground. So when we're on the ground, our stuff could be featured on other shows. We could come on other shows. Then instead of, doing your commentary based on, articles or Twitter, you could do your commentary from original reporting created by your independent media network. And there could be,
sharing,
go ahead.
Sorry, without sharing names, what was the bottleneck? What was the cause for it not happening?
In my opinion, ego.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion, egos. I'm not saying that makes you a bad person, but I think if, for example, if you're like, I'm just throwing out names. This is not someone who turned me down, but if you're Kyle Kalinske, for example, you got a head start on everyone else. I think he started his channel in the early 2010s, if I remember correctly. And he's done a great job. He's over 1 million subscribers now. He worked his ass off. He's definitely making way more money than I am. And Status Coup is. I'm not saying he's an egomaniac. I'm saying if it ain't broke, why fix it? He's got a good. I'm just saying from his mindset, why would I go join a broader network? I already have, over 1 million subscribers. Yes, I'm suppressed on YouTube, but I'm still getting a good audience. So I just think certain people with bigger audiences feel like they're good on their own island. And why join a broader thing? They're not thinking in terms of, well, if the goal is to counter the corporate propaganda, if the goal is to compete with corporate media,
right.
If the goal is not only to bring in more Gen Z, millennial, under 40 viewers, but also get in front of some of these more older baby boomer type viewers that are hooked to MSNBC and CNN. Not all, because we definitely have older viewers and baby boomers who are not, propagandized and brainwashed, but try and, reach them. It's a lot easier to do that altogether. And it doesn't mean you don't technically have to get rid of your YouTube. I think it would be a lot more effective if we all got off YouTube and did it through a strong website and app. But there was just people who kind of said oh yeah, that's a good idea, but then never wanted to follow through, if that makes sense. And I think that's a shame because it's such an opportunity. It's such an don't get me wrong. I am in terms of alignment and values and frankly, some things that they did that I did not find to have a lot of integrity. I'm not a fan of the Young Turks. Let's put it that way. With that said, for the greater good, and if it would give all of us more funding, if it would give all of us more eyeballs, I would hold my nose and I would join a network that the Young Turks was a part of, if that makes sense. There are certain there are certain other individuals that are not my cup of tea. I wouldn't want to grab a beer with. I think either, are kind of full of shit or grifters or whatever. However, on values, I don't think they're bad people. So like, I might not personally align with them, but I would join a broader network if they were part of it. So I don't think like if the requirement was we could only join one big network together with people we like, no, we're not going to have a network because there's a lot of beefs because that's human nature and not everyone likes everyone. But to me, like I look at breaking points, for example, and full disclosure, I've pitched them on doing more with them and instead of being, not to, going to the next step, not just being a partner, but like really immersing our on the ground reporting in their content, in their day to day. And, I love them, but they, I have not gotten a yes. Let's put it that way. So, what's the saying? You could bring the baby to the water, but they got to drink it. So there's a lot of outlets. There's a lot of outlets that they want to do it their way or they want to live on their own island. And unfortunately, as we have continued algorithmic suppression on YouTube, I mean, look, we got 186,000 subscribers right now. We're only live to 140 people. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
No. Like all of these channels to differing degrees are being suppressed. So I hate to borrow from Hillary Clinton, who I think is a sociopath, but in this case, I will. I do think we'd be stronger together. I do think, and I think also you gotta think about it also from consumers' point of view. You, the consumer, the news consumer, you only have so much time and attention in a day. You got your jobs, kids. Some of you have more than one job, so you can't watch 25 videos a day. Maybe some of you can, but you can't. You can't watch 5 live streams a day. You can't listen to X amount of podcasts a day. So with all of this different stuff everywhere else, if it was in one network where you could watch it stuff live, but also on demand, and this network had shows that kind of, there's synergy, like I would go on certain shows, or there might be debates between certain hosts within the network. There might be comedy shows or skits or whatever. That's a lot easier for consumer to latch onto one network. And, you get used to as a consumer, the programming, the times people are on that, than this mishmash of this person's live at this time and this person posts videos at this time. And they're all kind of talking about the same thing. But I mean, who has the attention? I don't. I'll tell you what, when I'm working, I have like 25 tabs open and a lot of them are YouTube videos that I don't get to because there's just not enough time. So, that's my long-winded way of saying what I told you years ago. I still believe now. And I wish people, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal as a reporter or commentator is just to grow your channel, earn a living, there's nothing wrong with that. And, have your voice out there, then I guess it's fine to have your own thing. But if your goal is to do that, but also this broader project of taking over the media and creating, challenging the corporate media, which I believe 60 to 70% of the reason we have a status quo in this country is because of the corporate media. I think the majority of the reason voters are uninformed or misinformed is because of the corporate media. I think the majority of the reason people like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Donald Trump win elections or win primaries is because of the media. And the reason people like Jill Stein, Cornel West don't rise is because of the media, because they're blacked out in the larger media. The reason that people like Bernie Sanders lose 2 in a row or the second time get very close but lose, yes, those candidates make mistakes on their own, but part of it is the media and the propaganda and the lies. So, yeah, that's my long-winded answer. But I gotta take one more call and then go pee before the members call. So hopefully I'll see you on the members call.
Can I mention one thing?
Sure.
What could we do? Let's say for me, an example to help make it happen. Just reaching out and
hey, if
saying,
people want to,
Jordan's down.
hey, if people want to create, I don't know what it's called these days. Is it a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe campaign for a independent media network with whatever voices you guys want on the network? Start it. If you get hundreds of thousands of people to say we want a network of you guys together rather than on your own separate channels, I would certainly listen. I'm already kind of down because frankly, I'm already doing the job of 4 to 5 people, so it'd be a lot better if I could come together with other channels. But I think if people like that idea, maybe people need to talk amongst themselves online, and it would be very powerful if you raise like $100,000 to start for something like that. I think a lot of hosts and shows would pay attention to that personally. Because frankly,
All right, Jordan, thanks for your time.
I think it's a matter of time. It's not if, I think it's when. Even the bigger channels start having their audiences cut in half, because YouTube is really just, they have a switch and they pull it every so often, and it throttles independent media even more. So thanks for calling, man.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
All right, I'm going to take one more caller, and then we got 15 minutes to our members call. Cassandra, you're up.
Hi, am I on?
You are.
Oh, hi, Jordan. Thanks for taking my call. My name's Cassandra, and I am a 59-year-old young Black female, and I want to talk about the 2024 election and why I believe the Biden administration has lost the Black vote, or a significant portion of the Black vote. As I said before, I am what would be considered a young baby boomer or an elder Gen X. I'm right on the border there. Mm-hmm. And I cannot support Biden for re-election. Number one has to do with Gaza. The second is the economy, and also the migrant situation. I was born and raised in Chicago, and even though many Blacks don't live in many of the blue cities, many of us have family members who live in New York, Chicago, Boston, New York, LA. At one time, many of our families during the Great Migration between 1910 and 1970 moved from the South to these major cities. And we know what it's like for Blacks who have decided to remain in those cities. And the press just has not covered what is going on in the Black community from a middle-class Black perspective. As I said, I was born and raised in Chicago, and the schools in Chicago, they are terribly underfunded. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, the same neighborhood as Michelle Obama, and her family grew up. And the media they never pinned her down. During her time as First Lady, she never advocated for those children in Chicago who were experiencing the gun violence, the underperforming schools. So many schools have been closed.
But Cassandra, she did advocate to make children move. Remember that.
Yeah. But that's, I am all for a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. But what the Black community really needed was an advocate to improve the quality of life of people. And I just have one other point. I am so tired of the Democratic Party saying, vote for us to save our democracy. When I hear that as a Black person, as a Black female, the question that pops in my mind is, whose democracy are we saving, and who is actually benefiting from this democracy? I'm not always benefiting. I'm not always reaping the rewards for the democracy. So that claim it rings very hollow to me. And so I won't vote for Biden. And my dilemma is, I don't know, I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do in terms of voting for the president. I don't know. I really don't see myself voting for Trump. I don't know about Cornel West. He seems so unserious. I might leave it blank. I will vote for some of my local candidates, but that's really where I am. And the media, they're just not covering us. They think that we're going to come back, and Biden has done serious damage. Especially with the migrant situation and just giving away tax dollars to individuals who have never paid into the system. And I'm pro-immigration, but the way this was handled, it's just terrible. And we have family and friends who live in these cities, and they're suffering. They're truly suffering. And that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I can't blame any black or white person, frankly, at this point, because a lot of people, black people, white people, Biden won Georgia because more black people came out for him in Atlanta than ever before. Biden won Michigan because more black people came out for him in Detroit than came out for Hillary 4 years earlier. Biden won Wisconsin because more black people came out in Milwaukee than did for Hillary 4 years before. I mean, that's the data. He did better among black voters than Hillary did in those states and those big voting centers, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Atlanta. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you're told hold your nose and vote for him because we have to get rid of big fascist orange man, and then you do that, and what do you get? He abandons his promise for a $15 minimum wage right away. That went out the door.
Yeah.
Abandons his promise for a public option. I don't even think he said the phrase in the last 4 years. During COVID, their great idea was to expand COBRA, which is a big scam of a health program. He ran on treatment for COVID. Hospitalizations would be free. It wasn't. It was not free. And then when you add in, after an unprecedented protest movement in America where millions of people marched across the country after George Floyd was publicly lynched, basically, he gave $32 billion more to the police so that they could go rough up protesters like student protesters protesting against a genocide. So I don't really, I don't tell people how to vote. They could vote for Biden or not vote, whatever. But he's certainly given people a reason not to, because it kind of falls on deaf ears, like vote for me or this fascist. Well, to a lot of people, fascism is already here. So
I just have one last comment to make.
Sure.
The Biden-Harris administration announced $16 billion that they were going to give to HBCUs. This bothers me so much because I am a college graduate. I actually have an advanced degree. I didn't attend an HBCU. 3/4 of Blacks do not attend HBCUs. We don't, because many of us, we want to support our state schools because we pay taxes there. Many of us, we need to stay near our homes because of family obligations. And to put that amount of investment into HBCUs and to think that is going to motivate your typical Black to vote, it's just not going to work because many of us, we don't attend those schools. So just something else to put out there. Well, Jordan, thank you for taking my call.
And stay forever young.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling. All right. I got to end the call because I got just a couple minutes before the members call starts, and hopefully eat something in the next 7 minutes. Let me read some super chats before we go. Ryan, $2. Appreciate the work and dedication. Thank you. Thank you. Double K, $19.99. Thank you so much, Double K. Perry Stein, $2. Farina's great. Will he be in DC on the 8th? He will. In fact, we're doing a double whammy on Saturday, June 8th. So in 2 days, we will be live twice. Knock on wood, if the technology works for us. So John will be live at, I believe it starts at noon. At the protest outside the White House for a ceasefire. And then Tina Desiree Berg will be live for us from Los Angeles. I believe that starts at 5 o'clock Eastern, so 2 o'clock Pacific time. I think I have that right. And she'll be covering college workers are on strike for Palestine. So we're going to have 2 live broadcasts. Again, it's expensive to do this live streaming. Just our data plan alone, and now it's going to go up because now we're having Tina go live in Los Angeles. Our data plan is $500 a month, and that's before we go past our data. We've been blowing past our data limit because John's been going live for 3 to 4 hours at a time. So if you can support us, statuscoup.com/join. You could also donate at statuscoup.com/donate. I hope to see as many of you as possible on the members call coming up in 5 minutes. And Colin has already sent out the link. If you are a Status Coup member on our website, if you are a Status Coup member through YouTube, if you are a Status Coup member through Patreon, a website member, you should have gotten an email. If you don't see it, check your spam. YouTube, you should see the link under the YouTube community tab if you're a YouTube member. Patreon, you should have gotten a link through Patreon. If any of you have any issues, you don't see the link, email us at info@statuscoup.com, and I will see you guys on the call in about 5 minutes. Take care.